First plant chores of the new year. Welcome back to the channel. My name is F.A. I'm growing a huge urban jungle in my New York City apartment. I grow primarily arrows, mostly anthuriums. I have lots of other plants as well, but I like to use them to make my 2-bedroom apartment lush. You could call it an oasis in the middle of an urban jungle. Before we continue, if you're not already, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of my videos in the future. What I thought would be cool today is, as a sort of refreshing start to the new year, we're gonna go through and do some plant chores here in the living room. And what we're gonna do is just have a look at each plant, see what it needs, try to give it whatever that may be. As you may recall, I have mentioned in my previous videos that I am going to be looking at every plant in this collection and being more intentional about what stays and what goes. I've already removed some. Yeah, I've slowly but surely already eliminated some, believe it or not, and I'm going through all the rest of them slowly and just deciding what brings me joy and what doesn't. I do think a big part of that process is looking at the plants in their best condition. So if I've completely neglected a plant and just, ignored it, is it that I don't want the plant anymore, or I'm just not happy with where it is? But then again, have I neglected it because I don't want it? I thought we would start in the grow tent. Even though it's not technically part of the living room, it's actually stuck back there in my kids' playroom. I have 2 plants still in there. Now, I used to have something like 10 plants in there, so that number has reduced drastically. But part of my new thing is I don't want to use the grow tent for day-to-day plants. I want to stick to the reason why I bought it, which is to rehabilitate any imports. So if I don't have an import and I don't have anything struggling, then I don't think it should be in the grow tent. I want to enjoy the plants. I currently have 2 plants in there. One of them is, actually, why don't I just show you instead of just sitting here yapping? It's sort of hard to see what's in the grow tent, but there are 2 plants. One is this anthurium, waterburyanum, and one right there is also an anthurium. It's a rehab. I will pull this out so you can see it properly. So we'll start with this one. Okay, so this this unbelievably cute cutie is an Anthurium regale X luxurians. This plant used to look like this. Like, look how huge and stunning and spectacular it was. It was one of my favorite plants. And then in the summer, when I went on vacation, it suffered because my plant sitter did not water them, and so it almost kicked the bucket. Actually, it just yellowed and dropped leaves, and its roots all succumbed to dry rot. It was a mess. Luckily, I was able to, with much persistence, I chopped all the leaves off, chopped it back to a chunk, and I stuck it in this Ziploc bag of tree fern fiber, and I put it in the grow tent. And it was nothing, let me show you properly. It was literally nothing but this chunk itself. And for the longest time, the chunk didn't do anything. Or it would try, it grew this root and then it stopped. It grew that one and it stopped. Regarding, I think, in my experience, can be a lot tougher to root than other anthuriums, and this was no exception. But then eventually it pushed out a nice leaf. A lot of anthuriums, usually when I root anthuriums, they tend to push out a leaf before they push out roots. So it pushed out this baby beautiful leaf, and then once that leaf was out, it just started pushing out these roots. So it's rooting, it's finally rooting. It's not ready for a pot yet. I think I'm going to let it root some more in its little bag. I'm trying not to disturb it too much, but I just wanted to show you that there's always hope, and anthuriums are the ultimate comeback kids. So today, this one does not need anything from us. It's got its little moist Ziploc bag home, and I'll just leave it in there. The bag isn't sealed because I obviously want the I want it to have some air. So yeah, the bag is not sealed. I just keep it nice and moist. I'm gonna leave this back where I found it in the grow tent. And this one does not need anything from us today. This one will be staying in my collection because it's one of my favorite plants. I love it. What will be interesting when it sort of makes a comeback is actually figuring out where in the apartment I'm going to put it, because I think the queen anthurium now sits where this used to be, and you know, this actually grows to be quite big, so that's not going to work. So I'll have to think of something else for this one, but that's a really nice problem to have. So that's this one. On to number 2. Okay, so for step 1, I need to take off all the dead leaves. Oh, that was easy. This is an old inflorescence. This leaf, see, this is why I have to repot it. It's so unsteady. This leaf in particular kind of annoys me. I'm not really sure why, but it's difficult to have it in the grow tent with this particular leaf, so I'm gonna cut this one off. Put it off here. Whew. It's painful, but you know, it's the price you pay. The leaf is not, this leaf is no good either. I'm not gonna cut the whole thing off because this is the growth, but I'm just gonna cut off the top. Hopefully that encourages it to give me another leaf. I'm cutting off this inflorescence and this old leaf as well, because I just think, like, yeah, no. We're fixated on like solving problems, not creating them. So there's this. It's clear to me that it wants something to grow all these adventitious roots into. So I'm definitely giving it a moss pole. And yeah. So far, this is what we have left. We have this leaf, which doesn't look great, but it's also not the worst leaf in the world. And then there's this other big one behind it. Let me show you. This one looks a little bit worse for the wear, and honestly I'm contemplating removing this one too. I'm not 100% sure though. I might wait a bit. I might give it the moss pole and do the repot first, and then once it sort of bounces back, I'll decide. But I think I will eventually remove this one because it looks bad. And this one looks bad too. They don't look bad right now. So leaves are off. Next is to choose a pot and then get a moss pole. I luckily have already made the moss pole, so that's good. There's a time saver. So that will save some time. I just need to get a pot that's a good size and can hold this guy. So I'm gonna go find one. Okay, like I said, I have a pre-made moss pole, so that's kind of nice, which will fit in here and sit just like this. And then the plant will sit kind of around it. So I'm just gonna put some potting mix in here first. It's actually, what time is it? It's evening now, but it just gets dark so quickly. I'm not a winter person. I can't wait for winter to be over, to be honest. I am a summer girl. I'm using a little mycorrhizae, great white, in this instance, just to encourage it to root. This stuff has never failed me, to be honest. It's made all the difference when it comes to the health of the roots of my plants. So I'm just gonna remove the pot extenders. The good thing about this is that I need, a couple of my other plants need pot extenders. So honestly, I'm kind of looking forward to getting these off and like repurposing them. I've never done that before, so I'm not sure how easy it will be. Like for example, some of the roots have kind of grown into the pot extender. That's another. What are you doing, roots? Like, what do you think you're doing? Anyway, I'm just removing that. This root has grown into it. I'm just gonna have to rip the root. Sorry, I need the pot extender. There is another one here as well. Might be easier to take off the actual pot first. Take the plant out of the pot. So we have a very nice, it's not crazy, the root system, but there are some really nice roots within it, right? Like it's not terrible. They look nice and green. So I think I've been doing a good job of resuscitating them. It's just a difficult plant, to be honest. Okay, I'm taking off the second extender. This one is held in with these pins, so I have to fish the pins out. Now, you use these stainless steel pins to hold the whole thing in, but the pins, of course, it's the first time I've unpotted something that I've used these for, so it's interesting. I had to, yeah, rusted completely. Well, I suppose the plant does not mind. Just I'm breaking a few roots in the process, but I don't think the plant cares about that. The extender is out. The root ball is actually not bad. I'll show you in a minute. Just gonna move this. The pot extender really does do what it's supposed to. It definitely elongated the pot and it's kind of a seamless transition. So that's very good. I'm impressed, honestly. Now I just need to figure out how to get this into this pot with the moss pole. The moss pole is sort of designed to sit in the center, smack bang, but the root ball is not gonna like that. It's too big. So I don't know, figure it out. Put the root ball in first, I guess. Okay. If I move the root ball forwards, I can kind of squish the moss pole in behind her. Just trying not to damage. I'm gonna slightly flatten the pole. I'm just slightly flattening the bottom of the pole so that it can slide in more easily behind this guy. Maybe here. This will work all the way down. Okay. It's in. It's not perfect, but it's in. This is difficult because I didn't put it on a pole soon enough. Should have put it on a pole from the get-go. You know what? Good enough. Okay, can you see what I'm doing? Wait, hold on. Just remove this. Okay, so now I've placed the moss pole here behind it. It's not exact, but it will do. And I will backfill it with some potting mix and then pull everything as close to the pole as possible just to encourage the aerial roots to go into the pole. This mix that I'm using is a combination of Molly's Aroid mix and tree fern fiber. I'm actually going to add some more tree fern. I'm adding more tree fern because strangely enough, I have more tree fern than Molly's Aroid mix in the house, and I actually have a lot of repotting to do. I'm worried I'm gonna run out before I can get more Molly's delivered. I have become spoiled by Molly's Aroid mix and I don't really like using anything else, so I just get that all the time. I use it religiously. The aroid mix, that is, on all my plants. I've tried the orchid mix as well. It's nice, but I think I like the aroid mix better. I think it holds the perfect amount of water for in my environment anyway. Not too much, not too little. I love it. Like, to mix that with tree fern fiber is the perfect mix to grow anthuriums, especially in ambient conditions. It just allows for you to water your anthuriums with no drama. This we go. This is better. So this has a bit more tree fern fiber, which will stretch the aroid mix more, but also nothing is better. Nothing that I've used is better for getting encouraging those anthurium roots to pop out than tree fern fiber. They go wild for the stuff. So I always use a good amount of it. And this year, I am determined to have a really beautiful anthurium display in my living room. Like, it's no secret, anthuriums are my favorite plants. I have others, but everywhere you look, I would love to see amazing anthurium action, like in every corner. I have other plants too, but let's face it, it's all about the anthuriums in here. So, for that to be the case, I definitely need to be more on top of my repots, just because it's so dry in New York in the winter. Humidity in here right now is 24 and that's very difficult. That's quite low. I am not one that believes you need ultra high humidity all the time to grow anthuriums in ambient conditions. All my anthuriums do really well in 40. It's always like, even in summer, it's probably like 50 max in here. 40, 50, they're fine. They don't need that 80% relative humidity. As long as there's good airflow, good watering, good fertilizing, good light, I think they're fine. The problem though is that below 24, below 30, in the 20s, it becomes tough, right? You start to see crispies unless you are really on top of your watering. You really need to like water them more because of the low humidity, and I just haven't been so diligent at that. This plant, because it's in a grow tent, it's sort of a double-edged sword. So the grow tent means that it doesn't need to be watered as often, but it also means out of sight, out of mind. And because I don't water on a set schedule, I just water them. I just walk by and lift things up and water who I think needs watering. That does mean that tent plants will often get forgotten. So one of the things I'm going to try this year is to be a lot more diligent about it. I'm just tapping the pot to get everything to settle, because with these repots you tend to have big gaps. It's because of the moss pole. There will probably be some big gaps in there. I'm just trying to minimize that by my best. And now I'm going to water it. The pole itself is already watered, but I'm going to water the pot. And then after that, I will use Velcro tie to attach this stem, pull the stem as close to the pole as possible, which will encourage the roots to grow. It will give them something to grow into, encourage them to grow into the pole. And then honestly, it's a matter of keeping the pole as moist as I can, and then just, hopefully the plant itself will do the rest. So I'm gonna get some water. It's a little bit full. It's a little bit too full, making it more difficult to water. Okay, I'm just watering her lovingly. This plant, this Anthurium waterburyanum, has been with me for a long time, and it's actually when it's growing well, its beauty, I think, is unmatched. I really like long-leaved anthuriums. when I freshly water, I just have to be very patient. Honestly, what I'm doing now is not practical. It's going to take ages for the potting media to soak up. Instead of doing what I'm doing, I'm going to take this plant to the shower and I will give it a nice shower, which is probably the most effective way of completely saturating the potting medium. But before I do that, I'm just going to get the Velcro tape out and tape the stem to the pole. So I'll tape it. I'll probably tape it. Typically I would tape it in 2 locations, down here and up here. But all these are not probably going to grow. You know, the growth into the stem is going to come from the top here somewhere. So maybe I'll just tape it at the top, just for the sake of simplicity. And I use the soft side of the tape, of course, and go in. I am going to pull the leaves in on this occasion. I wouldn't normally, but I'm going to because they are a little bit unruly and they are basically sacrificing themselves against the grow light. So I might do it a little bit below, just right here. Okay. Okay. Because it's going to be in the grow tent, honestly, it really doesn't need much encouragement in terms of getting the roots to grow into the pole. Like, they will, as long as I keep the pole moist in the grow tent environment, they will definitely attach with no problem. I'll just do an extra one because this top is where the next aerial root is going to come out of, so I want to be sure that it is kind of tight to the pole. I'm gonna give this a shower and then put it back in the grow tent. Now, like I said, my goal is eventually to grow this plant in open air. I have tried that in the past and I wasn't very successful, but I think it wasn't potted up in the right medium at that time either. So there were numerous factors. It's definitely worth trying again now that I understand anthuriums and my environment a lot better. So I'm gonna give this a shower and that's it for all the grow tent, for all 2 of the grow tent plants. It's pitch dark outside and I've done 2 plants. This is what happens to me every time. I always say I'm gonna do a big chores thing and I end up doing 2 plants. Anyway. Are you enjoying spending the evening with me and my plants so far? If so, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next video. Alright, so now I've done the grow tent plants. You can probably hear the anthurium waterburyanum. It's in the shower and I'm just letting the water soak it up and then I'll put it back in the grow tent. And now we have to look at the rest of the living room plants. I have behind me a bookshelf. You probably can't see it. Let me show you. So up top there, I've got a couple of pothos. And as you can see, they look terrible. But as I said before, do they look terrible? They look terrible, obviously, because I've neglected them. I basically didn't water them for about a month. Have I neglected them because I hate them? Or do I hate them because I've neglected them? $1 million question. I'm gonna pull them down one by one and show you. And then together we can decide what to do. Do they stay or do they go? Okay, this sorry site is was my pothos, my jade pothos. First of all, I bought this pot for it and it just has never worked out. So it's just too big for the space and it didn't make sense. So I think, number 1, I think it's goodbye to this pot. Number 2, the truth is I just don't like pothos. I do not like them. I have them up there because pothos is indestructible, honestly, and is probably the best plant to have all the way at the top of a shelf like that. Like, you see how horrible this looks, but it hasn't had water I kid you not, this guy has not had one drop of water since, like, I don't know, October or something. Crazy. So the fact that there's any green on it and it's still alive is mad. But I feel terrible because why should a plant have to deal with this? Why should I be treating it like this? So I'm going to get rid of this one, the jade pothos, because it's just not worth it. I wanted pops of green on my bookshelf, but honestly, I'll probably just find something else to put there. Maybe put a nice lamp there. I mean, everything doesn't have to be covered in plants all the time. That's sort of the whole point of this reassessment process. So if I'm being truly honest with myself, I actively dislike pothos. So there's no point in keeping this one. I'm getting rid of this one. I'm getting rid of the jade pothos. So say goodbye. She's barely halfway decent. Now, usually I would rehome the plant or give it away, but as you can see, it's in very poor condition. I would not feel comfortable even beginning to suggest that anybody take on a project of this magnitude, and I don't care to do it myself either, so I think this is just going straight into the compost. Bye. Okay, so that one's gone. Honestly, that's kind of a huge relief. I will find some other use for this pot. I'll probably store, I don't know, I'll store something else in here, socks or something, who knows, but I feel a bit lighter getting rid of that. I don't want it. It's gone. Now for this one. Now this one, this golden pothos, to be honest, as a plant, I don't like golden pothos either. I might like it even less than jade pothos, but for some odd reason, it's slightly hardier. I don't know what that is, and I do think that the location where I have it, it is kind of worth having something growing. There's a grow light cord there, a wire, and I do like the idea of having something green there. So I think I'm gonna keep this one, and I will try to water it better. The soil is very old and kind of, you know, I'll put a little bit of soil on the top. I don't know if it will help much, but I will. And I'm gonna remove all the yellow leaves, give it a trim, just clean it up in general, and I will. It's very gangly and scraggly, so I'm gonna chop it. I'm gonna cut this one off. This one's okay, it's not too crazy, so I'll leave that. But this one is too leggy, so I'm gonna cut it off. Old me would have propagated it, but I can't be bothered with that. No more propagations. So yeah, let's clean this guy up. So many yellowing leaves. This poor plant, it's so desperate to live, and I just keep treating it poorly. Hopefully, in this new season of intentionality, I'll be a little bit kinder to it. I'm giving it a try. If I notice after a few months that I'm still not caring for this plant the way it probably should be cared for, then I will get rid of it, because there's no point in keeping a plant if I'm not going to keep up with it. That's how I see it. Okay, so I got rid of all those old dry leaves. This one still has some here, but I'm cutting this off. Let me get the scissors. All right, so I'm gonna make the cut right here. It's still, that vine is still rooted, and provided I water it, I'm sure it will shoot out some new plants. So I'm gonna get rid of these. This is what we have left. So in here, I'm just gonna put a little bit of soil on top, not much, but the current medium is dry. It's just not, this isn't it. In an ideal world, I would just repot it, you know, refresh the soil. But this has to be devoid of nutrients. Like, it's been in this pot forever. I'm just gonna pull it out. That is so dry. It's not, I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's pretty dry. Okay, so I've shaken off some of that old soil. Not all of it, because, hello. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is just give it like some fresh, you know, a little new, just same pot. And I'm just gonna put it in some new, I'm just gonna allow it to have some new soil just to rejuvenate things a little bit, you know? I think it will do a lot better that way, so. I'm giving it this tree fern fiber rich, aneroid mix rich soil, which honestly I would not usually use this. I wouldn't usually use this caliber of soil for a pothos. Call me mean, but I feel like she does not need this level of soil. But I guess there is no harm. I'm just trying to rearrange the vines a little bit, since I'm gonna put some of these slightly under so that they have the chance to root a bit. I think that's kind of, might as well while I'm here. Okay, now I'm just putting in the soil on top, like these. It's a little bit tricky because I am trying to cover so much of the vine, so it's difficult getting enough soil mix in there. I'm doing the best that I can. The location where this plant lives really doesn't get very much in the way of light. This is a plant that just doesn't seem to care. I think it looks loads better than it did, so I'm gonna take this one to the shower and water it. Again, I like to water them in the shower just to make sure everything is fully saturated, and if ever anyone needed it, it's this guy. Once I've watered it, I'll put it back in this cash bowl, which I love this pot. It's from CB2. Most of my pots are from CB2. Anyway, I will put it back in here and it will go back on the shelf. And I actually think the shelf will look better for not having the symmetry of having two plants on the top. Just one will be good. So we'll try and do what we can to get this one more lush. I'm gonna water it. Now that the pothos is done and taken care of, it's back up on the shelf, I'm going to look at the plants in the corner right next to it. We're moving around the room. It's getting pretty late, pretty dark outside, so I'm not sure I'll do much more tonight. I'll probably continue this tomorrow morning, but I think we're making really good progress so far. The big plant over there is an anthurium, Ace of Spades crossed with papillilanum. Now this plant just causes me endless stress. It's quite annoying. Let me pull it out. So I actually feel like this plant is insanely beautiful. It doesn't really have the optimal lighting situation, I'm not gonna lie. The grow light is probably not powerful enough. It needs a slightly more powerful grow light. But I also think that the top of the grow light is hitting this leaf, which is not ideal. So I'm just going, the other thing that is happening on this plant that I don't like is these leaves have some kind of fungal, or they had some kind of fungal issue, which has since been resolved, I think, because those patches have dried a bit. Let me show you. So these are just very weird looking. It's not spreading, so I don't think it's an issue any longer, but I'm gonna cut those leaves off because they look bad. Well, this one looks bad. This one's not as bad. It's got a little bit of it, but like there's, you know, you see this, right? So I'm gonna cut those leaves off, those two. Additionally, this leaf over here was burned by the grow light. So in the spirit of not keeping ugly things around, I'm gonna cut that as well. I definitely have some issues to work out with the lighting situation. I won't be doing that tonight though. I don't know. I'm not sure how I'm gonna resolve that. I'm just gonna cut this first. Now, this isn't the first time when I'm having to cut the leaves off this bad boy. This is the spent inflow. I'm gonna cut it. I'm trying to be careful not to cut the growth. I almost cut the growth point. That would have been devastating. Okay. Cut this as well. Oh, where is it? Spent inflow. I've just broken my scissors. Useless. Phenomenal. Okay. Well, that's the end of them. Might seem OTT to be cutting this one off. It doesn't look that bad, but I don't know. I want things to just look perfect. Not perfect, but you know, more beautiful than they do right now. And this one as well. This one too. So now, she's a one-leafer. I feel terrible, but it's for the best. It's for the best. Here she is. She's now a one-leafer, but like this leaf is nice, right? So I'm gonna water this plant now. I'll give it a little bit of micro. I really should fertilize it. It probably needs, who hasn't had a good fertilizer in a minute? So I'm gonna water it. I will give it a little bit of fertilizer and I will put it back. This is one plant that needs a new pot. At the moment, it sits in this cash pot, which is beautiful, but makes no sense for a plant this size. So I'll probably, maybe next week, I'll try to see if I can go and buy a pot that will actually fit fit this. It's got good roots. I don't think it's time for a repotting necessarily yet. I might give it a moss topper if it will help, but it's probably not far off from a repotting soon. I'm gonna wait a bit. I don't want to set it back too much, so I'm gonna go water this now. That's being watered. I probably won't fertilize it tonight. I'll fertilize all of them tomorrow morning. In that same corner, next to that one, we have this Anthurium crystallinum. I don't know if anybody knows my history with crystallinum, but I have tried and failed like 3 or 4 times to grow this plant. So I am thrilled that this one, for the first time ever, is doing really well. Like, fingers crossed, the curse of the crystallinum seems to be lifting. So this one seems to be doing well. I'm really happy with it. It has good roots. It actually needs water, so I'm gonna water this. But from a chores perspective, this plant does not need anything. I was initially concerned because I had it under a grow light that I think was too strong, and these leaves were looking chlorotic, but also I think there was nutrient deficiency where it was. But since I moved it, as soon as I moved it, it gave this leaf, which is darker. So I was very happy with that. And then after that, it sort of split off into 2 growth points, which crystallinum seems to like doing. My other anthuriums don't do this, but these are both new leaves growing at the same time. So I think it now has 2 separate growth points. We'll see. Anyway, this doesn't need anything from a chores perspective, which is exciting. So I'm just gonna water this one now. I'm not going to fertilize it. Like I said, I'll fertilize them all lightly tomorrow. The nice thing about the dryness of winter is that, like, I feel like I can water my anthuriums a little bit more often and they're fine. They're fine because the humidity is so low. So I can get away with doing the fertilizing tomorrow, even though I'm gonna give it a shower now. Giving them all showers has proven to be quite important. I think that's one of the biggest things for the low humidity growing. Like if I just water in place, they don't do as well as if I remember to shower them like once a week. So I try to shower them on Fridays. Anyway, she's gonna get her shower and I'm gonna bring the other one out. And here she is after watering. I think this is probably a good point to stop tonight. Till next time, I'll see you.